There has been one topic that certainly has dominated the conversation, and that is, you guessed it, AI. Now, at the time of this recording, we are late November 2023. It nearly marks the first anniversary of ChatGPT. And so funny looking back, the conversations that were quite futuristic only a year ago have now become totally mainstream. But at the same time, we are literally just at the beginning of what's possible with this emerging technology. And everyone and their dog has their 2 cents to give of what it actually is, what it isn't, and how it impacts our life. So what better opportunity to get somebody who doesn't just talk about the future of work, but actually creates the future of work. We are joined by Denver Naidoo, who is the founder of Zeligate and has been in the space for the last 2 decades. Denver, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Petra.
I'm super excited because Zeligate is brand new, but you have been brand new to the space. And, just also a preface, Zeligate has actually been recognized as an AI startup to watch by AWS. So kudos for you to getting to the stage. But before we get into everything what Zeligate is all about, give us some background on you. How did you get into this space, and what's been your story to get to this point?
It's been quite an interesting journey. I've always been interested in technology, right from the Commodore 64 in 1988. But I think my professional experience spans back 22 years. And once again, just so fortunate to be working with large enterprises with that cutting edge technology, replicating data across the globe in 4 seconds, doing 300,000 transactions a minute. So all of those like really cool technical experience, I was able to get a lot of that through my career. But more than that, what I found is all of this is just an end result for what people actually want. People actually want to solve a problem. They want a solution to help them get there to that outcome. And given my history in IT, I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of different enterprises, a lot of different companies, a lot of different people. And the end result is always the same. It's solving a problem for someone. Hence, it was a natural progression to get Zeligate to solve problems for people.
Beautiful. Now, maybe or maybe not, some of us and around LinkedIn community have heard of Zeligate already. The big launch has happened already, a couple of months ago in Vegas. But what exactly is Zeligate to kick us off?
Yeah, it is. Zeligate is a workforce of AI helpers that actually does the doing for you. So you can delegate the doing to Zeligate while you actually focus on high-level work.
Love it. And this is certainly something that we have been looking forward, especially in the AI space, because who wants to do all the mundane tasks and the boring elements of any kind of roles or professions? And, at the same time, people are worried about their jobs getting replaced. And what does it mean to my profession? What does it mean to the industry? Can you shed some light on where is AI right now? Like, what is the status of the technology? What's already possible? What isn't possible? And then we take it from there, what it actually means to us as professionals.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, Petra. So what we found with Zeligate actually does the doing for you. So it does the low-level, mundane, tedious tasks, freeing you up for higher level, high-value work. So with the sort of AI being introduced into the space of work recently, what we found is the Zeligate principles are that these AI workers and AI helpers work for you and they help you. So the whole idea is that people can actually start to focus on adding more value to their customers, start to hone their skills in a certain area, and focus on the things that they really need to. So we're not taking the approach of, this is AI. Our approach is that Zeligate is a workforce of AI helpers. These are AI helpers that will start to do things for you. And what that simply means is you have someone on your team that you can delegate tasks to and do things for you. And you'll notice that I'm actually not focusing on the AI part of it. AI is the underlying technology. So are APIs and databases and all of these other technical foundational pieces that are needed. But that's not the be-all and end-all of what AI actually is. AI is just part and parcel of all of these technologies put together. It's another cog in the wheel that allows people to actually get the end result that they want. So in terms of jobs, if I had to look at that perspective, it's actually going to be something wonderful. It's going to be something that people are really going to embrace. So one of the questions that I often get asked is like, could you do X, Y, and Z? And often it's absolutely, but there's often constraints, and those constraints are I don't have enough time, I don't have enough people. And what would we do to solve that problem? Okay, let's get someone else on the team who is capable, competent enough to be able to do that. There might be some low-level tasks that you'd prefer someone delegating. If your email suddenly, got from 20 value emails in a day to 200 emails in a day, you really don't want to spend your time reading that. You need someone to maybe filter that for you. And that's what we do in the real world. But now imagine having an AI helper that could actually read those emails and actually action those things, book some calendar invites for you, understand your calendar, pick up the phone, call someone and say, hey, I'm calling on behalf of Denver, and I just want to confirm that you've said X, Y, and Z on the email. Can I go ahead and do this for you? So you freeing yourself for those high value tasks.
I love your approach to it, and you're spot on. Technology, in this case, AI, is just the means to an end, but it's not the be all end all. It's just how can we leverage technology to make our lives, make our professions more efficient and also more fun. And this is exactly why you're the perfect guest for the trusted authority. It's all about how can you translate what a certain tool or technology or your expertise can do to somebody else. And in this case, it's exactly that, taking away all the mundane tasks. And I'm curious to get a little bit of your backstory. Like at this stage, Zeligate is an AI tool that helps you free up mundane tasks. And it solves a problem, obviously, of not wanting to do all the low-level activities that are part of everyday job. How did you come up with the idea? What was the igniting idea or factor or inspiration that you said, you know what, we need to solve this problem not by the old way of doing it, hiring another person, but actually delegating and outsourcing it to technology?
Okay. Yeah. So there's come a point after being in the industry for 22 years and being exposed to a lot of cutting edge technologies and also technologies that have stood the test of time. And as I mentioned earlier, all of these things put together are trying to solve a problem. And every time I had a new team that I've been working with, there was a lot of rinse and repeat type of work. It was mundane, tedious things we've done before. We putting those patterns and practices together again. And then you look at the business side of things, there's standard operating procedures across all businesses, irrespective of what industry you're in. And there's so much of this work that's being repeated. It's tedious. And it's an obstacle for any business to be able to move forward. And we reached this point where we were actually setting up a business and we were thinking, okay, we know what value we want to add to our end customer, but what do we need to do? Okay, we need to go ahead and register this business. We got to find names. We got to get a lawyer involved in this. We got to get an accountant. Then we got to decide what type of people we want on the team. You need some customer success people to take care of the customers. You need some salespeople, etc. And all of these people are definitely needed in your team. But there's a time period in which you actually ramp up. Sometimes it's 6 months to a year. And not all entrepreneurs, startups or small businesses have that long to be able to set up a business, especially if you're just starting up. So what would be ideal is if you had someone that could do a lot of these tasks for you, and a lot of it's repeatable. So the idea was born from that. It was born from a necessity to do things that were low level. And with having integrations in IT, those were still very technical. And it still is. A lot of people talk about, oh, you could integrate into this piece of software, you can integrate into that platform. But the key word is integration. You talk to a lot of people and they don't really understand what it is. They know you click a few buttons. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But there's always that little bit of technical expertise that's required. And as much as they'd love to sell it as, oh yeah, it's point and click, no code, there's another level of expertise that's required. You got to understand what's an API. You got to understand what's your secret key and your access key. And most people think they just have passwords, which they forget most of the time. So how could we actually fast track this? And that's when the old idea was born. What if we had an AI workforce that could do the doing for you? And the technology has already been solved. It's all about bringing it together. And that's what we did. It was actually a burning need to get business going from that point. But then as we started to delve more into it and understand what the product would actually look like, we found out that this is a need across the globe, from entrepreneurs, startups to enterprises. they're all doing something that's very similar. If you look at the human resources space as an example, there's a hiring process that goes in. And depending which country you're based, you got to follow the laws of the country. And those things are very repeatable. They're very standard. And why not let an AI helper, do those things for you? You can focus on actually interviewing people and talking to them, understanding the actual person. It's a given if someone's applying for a job in a specific industry, they come with the skill sets. Quite often we evaluate the skill sets, and that's the minimum requirement. But you want to talk to the person, and you want to understand, who is this person that's coming onto my team? What are their likes? What are their ambitions in life? What drives them? Those are the high value things you want to free yourself up with. And then we realized, okay, you needed some low level work in hiring. What about the sales and marketing side of things? I want to be able to let people know about a brand, as an example. You definitely need people to drive that. You need people in marketing. But what if you had the tools to help you? It makes it so much easier. But what if you had an AI helper that you could see and talk to? Now you're playing the game at a totally different level. And that's what we aim to do. After bringing all of this together, we found that the technology, yeah, it's great. It's wonderful. We love it. We understand it drives everything, but it's just the lights that keeps the end vision on. And when we put this together, we realized, instead of pointing and clicking like you traditionally do, there has to be a new interface. We're at a time where things have changed. We're no longer doing things the way we used to. And by the year 2000, when the internet was really quite big and people were trying to organize the internet, we actually found that was quite new. So people learned from that. And over the past 20 years or so, we have evolved in that industry. And AI can no longer work with pointing and clicking. And that's what Zeligate was born of. I need an AI helper that I can see, I can talk to, someone that understands what I'm saying in natural language. And that's what we do. We strive to make sure that the user has the best experience so they can have the outcome that they want. And at the end of it, our AI helpers are just that, just helpers helping you achieve your vision, your dream, your end result.
I love the explanation. And it's clear that Zeligate is very much an innovative solution that hasn't been there before. But at the same time, AI is so new, and you're right, it changes the game, how we work, how we communicate, how we interact with each other. And just the old way of how we used to use the internet doesn't necessarily cut it anymore. I was just listening to a podcast before, and they were talking about AI and also compared it to the early stage of the internet, where there were all the conversations about, will it be on your desktop or will it be on your TV? This was the conversation where the internet actually happens. And it seems like AI is a little bit like that. Like, what is it? What isn't it? What is generative AI? What's normal AI? So there's a lot of interesting conversations that are happening. But what Zeligate and what you are all about is bringing it together, solving a big problem, leveraging different technologies into the one in all platform. Even though this is one of the most innovative solutions, your track record and your career history shows that you've always been on the edge of technology. I'm really curious from a personal perspective, what keeps you inspired? How do you stay up to date? How do you look around the corner and see what's next? What is the next problem that I can solve? And how can I leverage different technology that's there, but not necessarily in this kind of concept or in this kind of format? How can I leverage it to solve it?
That's a good question. And it's something I've contemplated about as well, because later in my career, I found that my focus has changed quite a lot. Initially, I've always wanted to be in the cutting edge of technology. It was exciting. It was the place to be. And one of the reasons I got into IT is because I love James Bond movies. I just love the way they typed on the keyboard and did things so quickly and got things going from just sitting at a desk. I kind of liked that. And a lot of my early passion was about that. It's like, how does tech work? How do we put this together? How can we push the boundaries? And as I went through my career and eventually, getting married, having 2 kids, having a family, you kind of see life in a bit of a different light, and which is good. And what I found is, from the family perspective, it's all about people. And then I realized it's always been about people. Every industry that I've worked with, the people I worked with had their own vision, their own needs, their own desires, and customers had the same thing. It's all about what people want. And my focus moved away from, I want to be the best that I can be in technology to actually, I was fortunate to be able to grasp these concepts easily. So that's something that I'm grateful for. Grateful for the experience I had with people and mentors around me. I've learned so much from mentors without knowing that they were my mentors, just people guiding me along the way. And now to this point where I realize it's actually more about it's all about growth and contribution. The more I can grow, the more I can contribute. The more I can contribute, the more people can actually contribute to others. And this whole sort of network effect where society comes together and everyone can be better, make it a better place, is pretty much what drives me. So if I see a challenge or a problem, it's a human problem that I feel that I'm trying to solve. And more often than not, being in this space, I go to the technology side of things and think about it. Oh, how can I solve it? Oh, technology can solve it in this way. So I think technology is a big catalyst to help human actually discover their full potential, solve problems, and move forward. So my passion is when people have a problem, I'm passionate about solving that problem. A lot of times in the product, we talk about product market fit. And that's the business side of it. You've got to have product market fit. But the moment you have product market fit and that product is out there being used by consumers, customers, there's a reason they're using it. And then you get feedback. And that's when the magic really happens. It's you thought this is what they wanted. Customers don't know what they want till they actually use the product. And then they realize what they don't want. And then that feedback just it really fuels me. I love seeing more problems, new problems, and I love solving those challenges and seeing that go to the next level. I quite like the butterfly effect. If a little thing can change someone's life forever in a positive way, changes the entire direction, the entire path. And with technology, I feel that we're actually doing that. I feel that we solve a problem, someone can go and do something a lot more easier, a lot more smarter, and that changes their life for the better.
Beautiful. This is why the products and every solution that you're working on is always successful, because you're spot on. You put the people first. It's all about solving a problem, and then technology is second. It's just the means to an end. But if you put your technology head on for a second and we geek out for a little bit, where would you say is the state of technology? Like, as I said, just in the last year, since ChatGPT has been launched, so many new apps, so many new tools, so many new innovations have been launched. The GPTs have just been announced a few days ago. So it's no slowing down. And as we know, technology doesn't grow linear, it grows exponentially. So from your technology futurist head and perspective, where are we now and where do you see the future with AI and any kind of emerging technology going?
I think that the future is actually now. We're at this point where it's so pivotal that it's going to change everything that we know. And although it's driven from technology and AI, it's going to change our lives. It's going to change the way we work, the way we play, the way we live. So what would happen in the next 5 years, in my opinion, is AI will be part and parcel of our lives, just like email. So you'd probably walk up to your fridge and now be able to talk to your fridge and have your fridge talking back. And this is different from the technology that's been out there. This is now part of life as a necessity. Your AI should be available to you everywhere and anywhere, and your AI should be able to do things for you. So it's not just a matter of using large language models to have a little chat back and forth, but actually be able to do things. An example is I could say to Zelly, can you please set up a pre-screening interview with Petra and ask her these questions? Or can you find this information for me? And once you find the information, I want you to call the local pizza place and order me a pizza, and I need it here by 10 a.m. And those are just simple things that are part of life. People need to eat, people need to work, and you should be able to have this incorporated. So it's not about where AI would go. I think it's about where humanity would go. There'd be a convergence of AI, technology, and humanity where it's parts and parcel of our everyday lives. More often than not, when we create something really good in the technology space, it's been the traditional point and click. And I'm really glad that Zeligate's taken a different approach where it's more natural. Because I think of people like my dad, who is like 80, and there's no ways he's going to figure out, go to settings and change his settings. That's something he would never do. But if he could talk to something the way he talks to me, the way he talks to people, and have things done, have a result on the screen, it makes life so much easier. And I think the real test is how much it actually helps people across the board, and not just creating technology and trying to hammer AI into everything that it possibly can go into, but instead, how can we help people from that perspective?
Absolutely. And I can see and hear already 50% of our audience and the population probably is excited, and that the other 50% is like, but then I don't want to give away my data. What happens to my security and my privacy when I interact with different technologies and robots and AI? What's your
Yeah,
answer?
yeah, that's something that's actually been around for a long time. And if we go back to the early 2000s, late 1999, people were afraid to put their credit cards on the internet, and for good reason, because there wasn't enough controls in place to actually manage that. We look at Mark Shuttleworth at that cusp of that whole security, creating encryption. Those were things that were actually introduced out of necessity. And now we'll find that there'll be more procedures, more legislation that'll come into play to actually help keep those bad actors out. But for where we are right now, we've solved a lot of those problems by making sure we do due diligence, making sure the data is encrypted in flight, data is encrypted at rest, they're securely authenticated when it's accessed, there's an audit trail. These are things that we do as our sort of, due diligence checkboxes. But taking it a step further with AI, there's this whole concept of ethical AI. And I think if we start from that point, it's a good base. You want to have transparency. Systems should be transparent about how did this AI come up with this result. You don't want it to be a black box, and every time it's a roll of the dice, it's like, today you get to do this, tomorrow you don't. You want it to be somewhat consistent and somewhat reasonable and rational in its outcome. But more than that, you want to understand how it got to that outcome. You want to be able to define those factors. And also, there should be some kind of accountability. There should be clarity as to where the accountability lies. I know, working a lot with AWS, it's got a shared responsibility model where there's a lot of things that are secure in the AWS cloud that bad actors shouldn't be able to get to, and AWS takes care of that for you. But then there's other things. If you have the key to your front door, and if you give the key to someone else and they use the key, that's a bit of your responsibility. So that's where the shared responsibility comes in at AI as well. We need to know that there's accountability for a company or an organization like Zeligate to make sure your data is secure so bad actors can't get to it. And at the same time, we need to also make sure that we don't take that data and use it in a way that you don't want us to. Hence, it's always a collaboration with customers. It's a collaboration with understanding what is your data being used for. And though the whole idea, the end result is the data should serve you. And that's what we want to do. We want the data to serve you, and we're accountable for making sure that your data is secure when it is with us by doing all the standard due diligence. It becomes a very checkbox exercise. Did we do this penetration testing? Did we do this? And once you have all of that in, you've done due diligence, and it's a good place to start. And I think governments will start to look at legislation to also help keep bad actors out. And a lot of that law will actually catch up in time. I think it will happen very quickly. There's other factors you can talk about. It's also about, fairness and non-discrimination. That's another big concern that comes into the whole ethics of AI. And it's actually a better model in some ways, because the answers are calculated, it's mathematical, it's based on science, it's based on maths, and you're not getting a bias in the sense of a human bias where someone might have a bad feeling about someone and you can't quite explain what that feeling is. But with computers, if you got to go back to the whole transparency, it's like, oh, how did you come up with that answer? And just like any technology in any industry, there are edge cases where you have bugs and flaws. And anyone who's passionate about what they're doing will actually try to fix that very quickly. So if there's a bias found in AI, the idea is you want to remove that bias. We know about this. We know that it's been a problem in the past. Therefore, these are one of the things you start to solve immediately. And you make sure that your output is actually more scientific and less biased.
I love the topic of accountability. And I think it's actually a good segue also into the next chapter from a user perspective, because we see already that AI will and has changed already certain professions and industries and roles, because we don't necessarily have to do everything manual anymore. We can outsource it or get at least some support from any kind of AI tools. It's not just ChatGPT, it's one of many. How would you say in terms of responsibility and accountability, will the workforce or the landscape change overall? Like, what are the skills that we need to focus on to future-proof ourselves in our careers, no matter the industry or profession that we are in, when we are not necessarily a software engineer or any kind of technician who is creating any future of work elements?
So this is the interesting part, and I've heard that question quite a lot, and I'd like to challenge that question a little bit. People don't really need to change to use this technology. They don't need to really learn to use this technology. And that was one of the sort of beautiful things about Zeligate. We wanted people to interact in a natural way that they normally do. So we don't want you picking up a course or a textbook to understand how to talk to Zeli. You could talk to Zeli, have a conversation, have the outcomes. And that's what we want to see AI do across the board. We want it to be more natural. We want it to serve people, and we want people to get the outcome they want without being, so restricted that they have to go and learn something. So I understand that there's this new concept of prompts, and you got to do prompt engineering. And let's take it a step further. What if you could talk to an AI helper the way you and I are talking? And your AI helper responds by listening to my voice, and your AI helper sees you and you see your AI helper. That's where I think it should be. And I think from the perspective of people and works and jobs, what should happen is we should talk about the change management, so to speak, in the sense that we need to embrace the technology, because what would happen is we'd have this point where the technology is going to be here, it's going to deliver what we need, and we're going to have people that are resistant, and there's going to be a clash. What really needs to happen is, firstly, the AI has got to be in the space where it's natural, it's easy to use, and then you're going to have people coming in saying, okay, I want to give this a chance, and it's not a question of how do I use it, it's let me use it, give me access to this, let me try this out. And if you can have that natural conversation, interact with AI in a very natural way, then you don't really need to go and learn things. People know their jobs. They know their business domain. I think AI needs to learn your job in your business domain.
I love this take on that. And I think this is also one of the characteristics of when innovation actually becomes viable. It's when the mainstream population can use it and doesn't need specific domain knowledge or anything like that, and you are focused on how can you make it so easy that it's natural. You don't have to actually think. The thinking is done for you. You are not just delegating, but you're Zeligating, so you can focus on bigger tasks and do a lot more at the same time without doing the doing. And I think you're spot on with the change management. I think it's also changing our mindset to how can we add value. It's not just us doing the doing and this is how we get rewarded and getting the promotion or the pay rise. It's about how can I create value leveraging technology without freeing myself up to the bigger tasks that AI doesn't do yet, or in a different way. And then I can outsource that. But instead of another person who is then doing the low-level task, how can we use technology for it?
Yeah, absolutely. And from the user perspective, back in the day, people thought that they actually wanted a faster horse, but what they actually wanted was a car. So this is where the actual innovators and creators would actually come together and understand what people want. And the more people get into the space of using AI in a natural way, I think it's going to be phenomenal. It's going to be phenomenal in the sense that it doesn't just serve us in business, but serve us in life, serve us in play. There's no reason why we shouldn't be able to walk into a restaurant and have the AI greet us, talk to us, and know something about us and give us a little bit of a personal touch, but then be escorted to your table with your waiter or waitress and still have that human interaction. It just becomes part and parcel of life, where it makes things easier. People don't want to stand in long lines. People want to get to the end of the line, So you actually want to have AI at a point where it becomes such sort of helper, in the sense that you are doing life and AI is part of your life. AI is just part and parcel of it. You're not working for AI. And that's something we strive for at Zeligate, making sure that that your Zeli is your AI helper. Your Zeli is there to help you. You're here. Your Zeli is here. It's not a like for like. Your Zeli is there to help you. And as your Zeli helps you, your Zeli learns and grows. As your Zeli helps you and grows, so do you. You learn and grow.
Mm. Now, you are right at the cusp of innovation and you see behind the curtain as to what's already there. You also recently attended the AWS CTO lunch where there were trends discussed, especially in the generative AI space. Can you give us a couple of insights or learnings that you've had from this lunch in particular, talking to other CTOs who are innovating, but also in terms of what you are personally excited about, what's ahead of us? What's the next big thing in that emerging technology space?
Yeah, what I love is that so many great minds came together and they were able to take different areas of technology and solve problems, solve real world problems that people are actually facing. There's a lot of burning hair issues that they're trying to solve. And there's also very innovative spaces that I've seen. One that particularly stood out for me was there was one of these CEO founders, and she's created this robots to interact with people at an emotional level. And I think for me, that was really fascinating because that's actually the next level where you want to take your AI outside of the computer screen and have your AI help you do things. So that was really innovative. And I think that's a very, very exciting thing to watch out for as well.
Mm. There is, I can't even remember when I heard it. It was literally in the last couple of days, but there's a research conducted with children who had to disclose problems or challenges or emotional issues, and they were more likely to talk to an AI bot rather than a person because they gave feedback that they were not judged and they were not afraid of them talking to others about their issues and so forth. So I think the next generation is growing up with a different mindset of how we actually use and interact with technology, more so from that space. It's safe, it's individual, it's personalized, but I don't have to be afraid of repercussions, that people can talk about each other or they can use that against me, or they can judge me that I'm not a good person when I'm thinking or feeling like that. I found that so interesting. And this is, when you said about the robot responding to an emotional feedback, that's very interesting.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And the possibilities just become so endless. And what I love is that it's once again focused on people, and it's such a big thing. I think always having the customer in mind, always knowing that you're solving a people problem really goes a long way. And with computers being able to understand emotion, I don't think they'll ever get to that level where they're sentient and they're able to have emotions of their own. I think I think it'll always be scientific. It wouldn't be a human emotion, so to speak. But if something can actually understand the emotion, it allows a better experience. So a good example is, if someone's sad, you can see it on their face, and no one likes to see people sad. There's a reason for that. And if your AI can start to tap into the side of understanding when you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed and being able to help, being able to do some tasks in the background to make you feel less overwhelmed. I think for now, it would be good for your AI to kind of understand that and go ahead and do it. And you would feel relieved. You're not having that talk to your AI, and your AI is not your psychological support, but instead your AI is that helper. If I had 10 tasks that I know that I needed to get through today, and if my AI has access to that and the AI does 8 of that for me because it can do things, when I get to my desk at 5 p.m. because it's been an extremely busy day, and I'm actually thinking I've got 10 things that I need to do before I go home today. And you get there and your AI says to you, I've actually done 8 of these things because I could, and you've just got 2 of these things to do. Now that's a relief. That turns that frown upside down.
Absolutely. Now, I'm curious from a personal perspective, you've got 2 young children. How do you prepare them for the future of work, where we see that the Gen Zs, 85% of their jobs don't exist yet that are going to be mainstream jobs in 2030? How do you get them excited about technology without being fearful of, what's my future look like if I don't have a job and so forth? Like, what's your personal parenting style?
I'm absolutely excited about this because it's such a wonderful place for my kids to be. They're growing up in this age and industry where a lot of problems have been solved, And now they're working on new problems. It's almost like an evolution of humanity. So if you had to think about it, back in the day, people would want to be a factory worker. It was something that they'd want to do. They'd want to go and do a job at a factory, work hours from 9 to 5. There's a bell that rings for lunch break. There's a bell that rings at the end of it, kind of the old typical industrial revolution style. But what happened was people didn't want to do that as their life's dreams and their life's ambitions. It was a means to an end. And quite often, we find that if you talk to someone and you ask them, what is your dream? What is your ambition? What is your passion? It's never to do the thing that they're doing. It's the thing that they're doing is a means to the end. So what I think now would happen for my kids is they'd be able to follow their passions a lot more closely, and where it makes sense to turn that passion into value, and that value turns into business, and there's return on that value. It'll allow them a lot more opportunity to do that. The barriers, the constraints would be removed. So they don't have to think in the typical terms of, I got to go to school for these amount of years. I got to study for these amount of years. I got to find a job. I got to start at the bottom and grow my career. Now it's all about, no, I'm growing as I'm going along. I'm having life experience. There's things that I will need to do to hone my skills to grow even further. And once I grow even further, how can I contribute? How can I use my talents? How can I use my skills to contribute? And I think that's where the focus would change. And if we have Zeli helpers, you'd be able to grasp any of these concepts very easily, get these Zeli AI helpers to do things for you. And I hope Zeli helpers are just one of the AI helpers out there that's going to do so many things. And now people can focus on different things. It really is an evolution of humanity.
You're spot on. And we don't know what we don't know. Like, we didn't have access to technology. When I went to university, I literally had to take a train for an hour, go to the library, find a book, find the information, and go home again. Nowadays, people are like, oh my God, how old are you? it's, in the great scheme of things, it's not that long ago. But nowadays, the next generation, they couldn't imagine not being able to click a button, having all the information that they wanted to. That's actually a really interesting question to you. How do you see education is changing or evolving to meet the changed work environments?
I think that the education system is going to change as a whole, and this is just my opinion. I think the need to go to universities is going to become more of a choice than a necessity. Personally, growing up, that was the end goal. You made sure that you had good results so you could get into university. You made sure you had good results in university so you could get a job. And while I'm grateful for that, it allowed me to have good foundational knowledge. If I had to go back and do it again, with the tools available today, I could do it so much faster, zoning in on the things that I really need to know. Quite often, you take a book, a nonfiction book, and it could be 200 pages. But what you need from there is just a paragraph to really pivot. It's really that lever that will help you move the world. But you got to read that entire book. With the tools available now, it's almost like you don't need to go and study a specific degree for 3, 4, 5 years just so you could be an expert in that one field. What would happen is people would become very broad, and you sort of have this T skill set where you're broad on so many different things, you have a good understanding on it, and there's a few things that you go really deep on that you're really passionate about. So if you're really passionate about robotics, as an example, you'd know a lot more about robotics, but you'd also know about everything else that's needed to go with it. There's no reason why life skills shouldn't be part of that as well. Academia has always been about learning the rules, learning the theory. And now you find that people can work from anywhere. People can live anywhere. Things have changed so much so that we almost need a balance between just academia and life to actually coexist as one. And this is where I think the tools that's available to us would allow us to do that. So you don't go into your AI helper, as an example, and figure out, okay, I'm doing spreadsheets on this tab, and I'm going to click and go and do some word processing on another tab. And, oh, I got to get dinner. I'm going to go and open up something else to order dinner. If you're in there and you're talking to your AI helper, you should be able to do life. You should be able to do work. You should be able to do play from the same place.
That is exciting. And that brings me into the last question. and exciting opportunities. What is next in 2024 for you and Zeligate? What's your vision? Where do you want to take it in the next 12 months only? Because everything beyond that seems like 3 lifetimes away.
Yeah. And you know, what's really exciting and what we're passionate about is that we probably spent the last year building Zeligate, building this AI workforce of helpers in and all these different areas and disciplines, honing the technology underneath the hood. In 2024, we just can't wait to unleash this so that everybody can actually get their hands on a Zeli. Ideally, out of 8 billion people on the planet, we want to get at least 100,000 people having access to Zeli so that they can actually use Zeli and improve their lives in some way. And the next step is, as much as it's going to help you from a business perspective, ideally, we want to see a Zeli in every household in the world helping people.
So excited. Thank you so much for all your wisdom, all your learnings that you have had along the way. What's the best way to continue conversation? Where can everyone find you, connect with you, and chat with you further?
I think the best thing to do right now is go to zeligate.ai, get yourself on that wait list, because that wait list is actually growing so quickly and we're going to have to cut it off at a point. Get on there and get your hands on a Zeli. All this exciting tech that you've been hearing about, all this AI, there's something really exciting that you're going to find in Zeli.
Absolutely. And we put all the links, of course, also in the show notes. Denver, thank you again for being here.
Thank you, Petra. It was really exciting being here.